Hi everyone, can you hear me in the back?
Yes.
I'm thrilled to be here for the first public demo day for the Innovation Fellowship. I was actually in the school the first week for the first demo day on the Friday back in September. So today I was thrilled to see how the students' projects have come over the course of the first term. So when Kai and Scott first approached me earlier in the year with this very innovative project-based learning model at the heart of TIF, the main question they had for me was how to make this not only legible to universities, but exciting to universities. How will the students at TIF position themselves and lay a strong foundation to be able to get into whatever they eventually identify to be the best fit schools for themselves? Having done that collaborative work with them on the curriculum, observing the school day and speaking one-on-one with the students, I can now say in my professional opinion with full confidence that for the kind of student who's going to thrive at TIF, who likes interdisciplinary projects and project-based learning and experiential learning, this is really the most ideal learning environment for that kind of student to lay a strong foundation for their college applications. And today I want to talk you through my thought process when approaching this project. So I'm going to start with my own alma mater, Yale University. And just to go back one slide, when we say best fit, this is oftentimes a sticking point for parents who will come in and they want to focus on rank or they want to focus on brand. For students, ultimately you want the inspiration and authentic interest to come from them, and eventually they're able to articulate what is the school that's the best fit for them, what is the program, and why do they want to be there. So let's start with Yale University, one of the highly selective Ivy League universities in the US. They have a number of pages online articulating what it is that Yale looks for in their admissions process. Now, I know this font is fairly small for folks in the back, so I'm going to read these slides out loud. Many years ago, former Yale president Kingman Brewster wrote that selecting future Yale students was a combination of looking for those who would make the most of the extraordinary resources assembled here, those with a zest to stretch the limits of their talents, and those with an outstanding public motivation. In other words, applicants with a concern for something larger than themselves. Now, this is not unique to Yale University. Many selective and highly selective universities in the US, in other regions, including Canada, English medium programs in Tokyo, these are the through lines throughout their application process of the kinds of students they're looking for. And especially this last point, applicants with a concern for something larger than themselves. And that's really where the TIF model begins. Students identifying a grand mission, taking what they're learning in the classroom and applying it to real world settings, and then doing next step projects. Not only is an exercise in articulating what is the grander project they want to further and be a part of, but also building demonstrated evidence throughout their high school career of the projects and research outputs that they're creating in order to approach the front lines in whatever field or mission or industry they eventually want to end up in, and using school and experiential learning as a means to eventually arrive there when they begin to work after school. So that's for highly selective universities, but I want to talk about a few different kinds of schools. So let's talk about Babson. So Babson is a small liberal arts college in the US, and its pedagogical model is based mostly in entrepreneurship and business, which I imagine may be of interest to several TIF students given their inclinations. When students in high school apply to college, one of the most important things in the application process is the supplemental school-specific essay. You can actually look at the common data sets that are published by universities, and they will rank of all the different parts of the application what is very important, considered, and not considered. And supplemental essays are almost always very important, in part because schools are very concerned about yields. They want to know not only is the student outstanding, but the student is very serious about going to this school. So Babson asked a why this school, why this program question. This is common to a lot of universities. The Babson education prepares students for all types of careers across business, entrepreneurship, social innovation, and more. Tell us about your interest in this area of study and in Babson specifically. This year, I have worked one-on-one with several hundred students who are applying to university. And let me tell you, for students who are working within a traditional academic framework in their senior year, this is very hard to articulate, especially if they're trying to articulate it for 8 to 12 distinct schools and programs, because they haven't been doing this kind of reflection and intentional real-world research throughout their high school. Whereas for students who are learning within the innovators framework, this is what they're doing from the very beginning, day in and day out, and especially that piece of the puzzle that's reflection and pivoting and going deeper. That's exactly the kind of work that is necessary in order to be able to confidently answer this question, but then point back at your academic record and portfolio from high school and say, not only am I convincing and telling you this now, school and program, but I've actually been working toward this for the last 3 or 4 years. Now, tuition has become insane in the US, right? So increasingly, and especially since the pandemic, English medium schools in Japan are very attractive to families with students in international school. I put on the screen the prompt from Todai Peak. This is especially an exciting program for students who are interested in environmental science or Japan studies. Now, Todai Peak likes to torture its applicants during the application process, much like AU Chicago, by giving them unconventional prompts for their supplemental essays. And I oftentimes talk about these prompts as creative writing meets real-world issues. The students need to do essentially a creative writing exercise, but one that shows that throughout high school, they've actually been thinking a lot about what's going on in the world outside of their high school. So this year, Todai Peak has asked applicants to write to this prompt. Please demonstrate that you are not an AI. Did anyone have to write an essay like this when you were applying to college? It's cruel, right? Maybe some U Chicago alums are in the audience. For a TIF student, this is their bread and butter, right? Because they're thinking every day about real world issues, but they're also interfacing with industry leaders from a variety of industries, including tech and entrepreneurship. Now, finally, I want to call attention to Carnegie Mellon's main prompt from this year, which is the how will you achieve your goals style of prompt. So increasingly, schools are looking to applicants to see if in interviews and videos and essays, they can actually articulate what they want to do with their college experience. So Carnegie Mellon asks, and this is the school that's very exciting for students who are interested in a variety of majors, chemistry, performing arts, computer science. Many Carnegie Mellon students pursue college for a specific degree, career opportunity, or personal goal. Whichever it may be, learning will be critical to achieve your ultimate goal. As you think ahead to the process of learning during your college years, how will you define a successful college experience? The key to answering this question well and authentically is if you are the driver of your educational experience, what are you going to do with that opportunity? It's no longer dictated to you. You get to decide how are you going to be resourceful? What are you going to study? And what are you going to do with those skills that you're building, right? For a lot of students who have very little flexibility within their high school curriculum, they haven't been asked to answer those questions yet. So answering it to a university interviewer or in the context of an essay can be hard. But for a TIF student who is thriving within the project-based learning model, the whole time they are the driving agent of what they're learning. And it's up to them to connect their interdisciplinary projects and the various fields that they're studying to the project outcomes and real-world issues that they're working toward. So I have a feeling that of all the kinds of questions and prompts that I've talked about so far, this one is usually the most difficult for students who are in traditional learning environments at international schools, but I imagine it will actually be the easiest for a TIF student, not only to articulate and explain, but also to demonstrate through their various project outcomes. So with that, I'm actually super excited to see the project outcomes from this semester, having seen where they started in the first week. So I think handing it back to Kai and student voice would be the next best step.